Welcome to game 2 between RTG and Doodle. Bottom left-hand corner, we have RTG as the peach. Terran, upper right-hand corner, we have Doodle as the yellow Protoss. This is going to be on Blue Storm. And if game 1 was any indication, I am wondering if RTG is just going to run away with this match. Because Blue Storm, I might as well do map reveal here. Blue Storm has a very wide natural expansion ramp, a very exposed third base. It is one of those maps that I feel like can favor Terran 2 factory play. At the same time, early game, there's just so many things Zealots can do. And there's also, I just feel like this map is Dark Templar drop bait because of just the huge area to drop off here, the large area to drop off to the north, and you also have that little gap with the natural expansion. So I don't know. We'll see. Also, it can be extremely scary. I feel like 3 map reveals for you guys. Once you get siege tanks on kind of this lower edge right here, where they can range below, if you can just make sure this gap is somewhat plugged, it can be really difficult for Protoss to deal with. However, I will say this. When I have seen Terran versus Protoss in other matches, like historically, it has been some of my favorite TVP ever. Mostly because when it turns into a long-term economic game, I feel like the result of we're going to get 4th map reveal. The valley across the middle and the vision and the attacks that kind of come across there just make really interesting engagements. The arbiters all over the place make it really, really fun. RTG not messing around. He's actually going to do a initial seal on his front door at the natural, basically cutting himself off from the natural expansion. Is that going to deny vision though? And actually bringing out a second SCV to deal with the barracks while he engages the probe and actually gets a probe kill, hero SCV. So scouting probe down, Doodle building an initial zealot. I wonder if he actually wants to cancel that zealot upon seeing that front door being constructed. Grabbing an assimilator to follow this up. We do have a refinery, but we are seeing 3 SCV on gas. So I believe RTG is going to opt for a 2 factory build here. If only to get a degree of map control with kind of a rampless base. Zealot making his way, going to get to the gap. Is he going to get to the gap to kill that SCV? He's done some initial damage to that SCV, plugs it. That's going to force that Marine to go the long way around. He has a cybernetics core building kind of in an awkward spot. And putting this this is clever. So putting a pylon at kind of an awkward location. And doing so to put RTG a bit in the dark as far as what is going on with his tech. And we'll see if this confuses him, trying to blockade things otherwise. RTG cycling around, looking for, and no second zealot being produced. Oops. So even if this SCV managed to sneak in, he would see a missing pylon potentially and might be a bit distracted. Getting a little bit, well, is he going to, we'll see. That zealot might be able to get a free hit. He's trying to bait that SCV in. But on the opposite side of the map, we do have that initial factory down. We have several Marines being built. And is this just going to be a single factory push? An FD style sort of build? We'll see if machine shop drops down, or if we're just going to go. I'm waiting for that second factory. There's the machine shop building, and it looks like RTG going to go ahead and move that barracks forward and start constructing a bunker on that front. Dragoon is out, should easily get that SCV kill. Doodle going ahead and upgrading range. So interestingly enough, so 3 SCV got, okay, now 1 SCV. No, still SCVs on gas. This is an interesting play. I'm wondering the decision making there by RTG. Perhaps just wanting to have that spare gas for something to follow up. We'll see. Command center being built on this front door. 3 Marines in the bunker. No additional Marines being produced, so I take it back. It looks like it's just going to be siege tech defensive play. Perhaps just forgot about that SCV. Now we only have 1 SCV on gas. So ignore everything I said earlier. Zelt still plugging in the gap, and we have a follow-up Nexus behind 1 gate. So it's 1 gate into Nexus, trying to play it as economically trim as possible. This Dragoon, if he can kill that SCV and deny additional information, that would be huge. Wandering up, seeing that Nexus being taken, and actually going to be able to wander out into the main. Unfortunately, at this stage, this is where that pylon and this stuff... Well, Citadel of Adun warping into that corner, that SCV... walking through. Is he going to be able to move to that upper left-hand corner to see the tech is the next question. That Dragoon trying to box him out. It looks like it is going to be Dark Templar. I assume with the robotics facility to follow and drop. The Dragoon yeah, kind of a cat and mouse game. Wants to make sure that SCV doesn't go out and spot it at that corner. Opposite corner, we do see, yeah, just single factory play. Preventatively, an engineering bay already built. Interestingly enough. So perhaps sniffing this out. Still only a single gateway as that Citadel is finishing. So Doodle really relying, and there is a missile turret on the front door. So realizing, okay, yep, smells like DT. We're going to go ahead and put that missile turret on the front just so the DTs can't just walk across the main. And we do already have a missile turret in the main. So it seems like RTG has already felt, and keep in mind, that's really early turrets. That's a serious investment early for Terran right there. That's money that's not going to factories. That's money that's not going to supply depots. 3 siege tanks on the front, 4 Marines in the bunker, and siege tech being researched. One thing the Dark Templar do provide is a degree of map control to follow this up. Another SCV scout from RTG. Second assimilator being warped in. And we do have a robotics facility. Perhaps to build a shuttle. Potentially to build a shuttle to allow the Dark Templar to just wander in. Regardless, they'll provide a degree of movement. 4 siege tanks on the ground now. That probe is going to see that attack force coming in. No academy as of yet to provide any detection. So with the Dark Templar out there, almost providing, and I like the floating engineering bay to provide some scout. Unless mines are being upgraded here in the background to follow, and there's just a large delay in the initial engagement, these Dark Templar are going to be able to eliminate all sorts on this front. Although with missile turrets, that could be the difference. Initial Marine being killed. Does the Dark Templar go up and cancellation on the turret? Yeah, and backing up. Wisely doing so. Only 1 Dark Templar here. There was a probe at the 12 o'clock looking to provide some engagement right there. So at the very least, in that regard, the jig is up. Another Dark Templar wandering in. Might get, well, okay, sees the turret, backs off. Wise. And only takes a bit of base damage as a result. The engineering bay, at the very least, is going to be able to wander in and get some scouting information to follow things up. Doodle very reliant on these Dark Templar because he's been sitting at just 2 gateways for a long period of time. And it looks like he's going to go for that. And he actually sees that probe at the 12 o'clock location, I think, which gives him a strong indication. Pause. Phone call from work. That he was, in fact, opting to go for faster economy. Dark Templar in the shuttle going to go to the north. Here's the thing. There aren't any siege tanks or any other defensive units currently at the main. An interesting SimCity here. Shuttle being hit by that turret. The Dark Templar are down. They're getting on top of that missile turret and able to take that out. And it looks like they might be able to get some SCV kills if they coordinate. Yep. Otherwise, no ComSat as of yet. It's going to be a bit before that ComSat comes online. The Dark Templar trying to split up. One trying to bait the ComSat to the north. If they can get 2 ComSats out, they can still sit here, but another turret has been built in the meantime. The other Dark Templar down here, a little bit hidden off screen. First Dark Templar taken out. Second Dark Templar still standing. Did take out a supply depot, but not getting a lot of other damage done. Nexus being plopped at the mineral only. And a Stargate and a Arbiter Tribunal on the way. So quick Arbiter to follow this up. 4 factories down. Mines being researched. And actually with that Dark Templar down, and Doodle sitting on gate, what is this, 4 gateways? But just starting to produce units out of this. Is that Dark Templar going to be able to sneak back in? I think that second Dark Templar was in fact taken out. Another Dark Templar moving forward, but with fewer Dark Templar out in the field. And decent ComSat energy, it is possible that RTG might be able to go out and not get kills, but definitely go ahead and establish his 3rd base or get a degree of map control. It looks like he is moving out to potentially do so. If he can get some mines down, that will definitely mitigate Dark Templar out in the field. And oof, RTG engaging right there, losing another Dark Templar. So very, very cautiously moving out here. Dragoons and Zealots moving forward. Currently, the supply lead, I'm going to say the army composition just favors RTG. He's actually moved out with a considerable amount of SCVs as well. And I don't know if Doodle has enough to fight this off. Some turrets being planted to split the map in half. And tank sieging up on the high ground. 2 Dragoons and additional Dragoons being damaged. Very quickly wiped out. RTG, yeah, taking that map control. No mines as of yet. Dark Templar moving forward. But this is a lot to kill for just a single Dark Templar. There's a Comsat. Takes that Dark Templar out. And yeah, I think Doodle just has to watch this happen. He's going to be very reliant on this Arbiter that's going to be coming out momentarily. I don't know that he has enough just ground troops. What is this? 6 Dragoons? 6 Dragoons to deal with the siege tanks on that low ground. I love it when I point something out at the beginning of the match and it just happens. Makes me feel a lot like, hey, smart. Tank sieging over that ridge. Getting free shots on probes over that natural expansion. And this is very difficult to deal with. Some siege tanks are being assaulted by the zealots out of that shuttle overhead. The vultures are now in position to engage those zealots. This is a little bit mitigated because that third base is up. But this still basically makes it two bases versus 2. You can't build turrets on the low ground. And there isn't a Psi vessel up just yet. So RTG might have to pull back. Depending on really the Goliath. It looks like some additional Dark Templar moving up. And also the energy. Comsat energy. Looks like there's going to be 2-3 Comsats available. Not a lot of army underneath this for Doodle. Trying to engage from the back end. An initial Comsat being expended. Backing up out of that. He's got to do that twice more and preserve a large portion of his army to try to evict this. He does have stasis coming online. His natural expansion nexus is down. But critically, he needs to evict RTG across this middle area or he will end up losing the match in the long run. SCV sneaking out through that gap. The Dragoons trying to engage from that lower position. There's the second Comsat. The other problem is Doodle needs to do this very rapidly because if he doesn't do it rapidly, that Comsat energy recharges very quickly. Well, I was thinking there was going to be an SCV moving out to go ahead and take that third. RTG firmly establishing a strong position. A probe sneaking to that bottom right corner. It's been taken out. Vulture seeing that Nexus warping in, planting in some mines. Some reinforcements. Some very, honestly, Doodle just doesn't have enough to deal with what RTG's fielding currently. Engaging right now. Arbiter pressing forward. More Comsat. I take that back. Some stasis, unfortunately, just on the Vultures. So ignore what I said. Doodle, with reinforcements, scooping up. And the Zealots, even though they're slow Zealots, able to run up that ramp and able to clear everything of RTG's out. So now I'm going to look the fool. Because RTG just got wrecked. Nice engagement from Doodle across the middle of this map. Really at nice points of engagement. Leaving those siege tanks. Diving towards what I think he presumed would be a third that's up. Having to pull back that Arbiter a little bit to preserve it. But Dark Templar are managing to hang out. One Dark Templar taken out. Are able to deny that third. These Vultures are going to get cleaned up and those siege tanks are going to be cleaned up otherwise. However, I'm still going to give a little bit of favor to RTG. Mostly he's taken out that natural expansion nexus. He lost a lot of troops right there, although it looks like he might end up losing some additional. These Dark Templar are really paying dividends for Doodle. RTG having a lot of trouble dealing with them. But essentially this has been 2 base, one of which is a mineral only. And it's back to 3 bases versus 2 base just now. RTG needs to think about taking another base to stay economically relevant. We got 7 gateways back here. The main's looking thin for Doodle. He needs to retake his natural expansion. I like the Dark Templar camping in the upper left-hand corner. And now we see RTG starting to position forward, drop some turrets to go ahead and start working on that natural expansion. His main also looking thin. His factory count currently at 6. His level 1 weapons, again, not opting to go, so playing the early positional game, rather going for those level 2 weapon, level 1 armor attacks that have been so popular. Perhaps respecting Doodle's ability to macro and kind of counter those style of builds. going to say anyone's game. Doodle has shot way ahead in the overall supply count, but he's still got his work cut out for him. Usually at this, and this is the exact sort of matches I love seeing here. Usually what happens here is if Protoss can cut the map in half and deny bases as long as possible to the Terran opponent, they oftentimes end up just being ahead. And then you can get recalls across the main. This is, again, like a big recall area to get on top of these factories, and it just takes so long to get back. RTG sneaking up that 12 o'clock location, try to deny that a little bit longer. That engineering base still sitting there, and that's going to be able to see when that natural expansion is being reestablished. Armory, upgrading level 1 weapons. No second armory as of yet. And speaking of recall, there's a recall into the main that I missed. Looks like just a handful of Zealots and Dragoons. Mines being planted furiously by RTG to try to clean this up. Some Zealots actually being a little bit on hold position or something like that. Not joining the fray. I'm not sure why. One Arbiter has been taken out. Now they're engaging. Working on that ComSat to try to keep RTG in the dark. The Zealots sweeping back around. So only one ComSat remaining. How much energy does it have? It just now has enough energy to get a second ComSat. And that would just barely be enough to try to clear this army out. Looks like that ComSat is going to drop. And maybe that, and that's it. Turret desperately being built in the main. Looks like there's no focus fire on it. But while all that's happening, Doodle is gathering another attack force to go ahead and deny that third base. Doing exactly what he needs to do. So Arbiter out of the main. But now Doodle diving into that mineral only. Distance mining here for RTG. He's in some economic trouble to follow things up. He has no science vessel detection at this stage. He's well a ways off from having energy to provide some detection. So he's having to just rely on turrets. And if Doodle can stick on top of this, take out those turrets and keep those Arbiters alive, he's going to have a firm level of map control. And his Arbiter already taken out overhead. It looks like Goliath was not focus fired and taken out in this fight, but there's still overwhelming amounts of Dragoons pressing into this into this mineral only. So that's getting wiped out. The command center under fire, more siege tanks having to gather forward, and you can just see RTG having to rely on turrets to press this. Doodle folding back. Finally, his natural expansion not quite fully mining. He does have good saturation here at that mineral only. He is mining decently out of that third. Critically though, it looks like he's got a forge there. Does he have a second forge? He's getting level 1 weapons. And I am concerned with RTG not kind of utilizing that big thing that is so strong these days, which is Terran's weapons upgrades. Falling behind in that. Also, still no science vessels. He's got a starport. I don't see a science facility, so he's not even going to be able to press up. It feels like he had an initial plan to kind of do that positional advantage, and now he's just been trying to fight uphill the rest of this match. Doodle now at 150 supply versus 92. Still has that Arbiter overhead. Looks like that additional ComSat has built a little bit more energy, so he's going to have some ComSat to work with. But really at this stage, you'd expect at least a science vessel at the 18-minute mark. And usually you would expect more than level 1 weapons, level 1 armor. Which is something you need when you're playing thin against a Protoss opponent. Arbiter does have something for a recall. We'll see if he sneaks off to go ahead and do so. Photon cannons being dropped for Doodle at the mineral only, just in case some vultures manage to sneak through. Still allowing that engineering bay to live. He's going to go ahead and sneak an expansion here at the 6 o'clock. This is pretty typical when you feel like you have map control because you divided the map in half. We do see some vultures kind of sneaking out. I don't know that just one cannon would be enough if they can kind of squirt through here. I think learning from game 1, Doodle gonna cut those vultures off at the pass and going ahead and engaging there. We have that Arbiter along this field. This is so many turrets to fly across though to try to get in for a recall. And I think that would be a suicide mission. Dragoons wandering up to the north to go ahead and clear that out. Some siege tanks getting a shot or two at those Dragoons as they do some mine clearing. But critically, RTG, his main is mined out. He's got his natural expansion running, just now getting that science facility. But he's basically mining off what feels like 1.5 bases, because this is going to be mined out in not too long. Arbiter moving up. Does get a huge recall over the natural expansion, but there are all sorts of turrets to take that out. And this is right at the defensive point for RTG. I think he should be able to clean this up. Still, a lot of SCVs could end up getting taken out in the interim. Plus the siege tank shots are going to be all over these SCVs. Looks like a lot of these tanks remaining unsieged, perhaps being cognizant of that fact. And so Doodle, yeah, he can keep applying. He has managed to clear out some turrets to maybe open up future drops and at least force a rebuild. Vulture sneaking up to the 12 o'clock. They are going to catch that probe there. Kind of too little too late, though. RTG now, yeah, dropping those turrets back down. Doodle still sitting at 156 supply. Still has managed to keep RTG effectively to 2 bases. And he is mining essentially on 4. He's got the 6 o'clock base, bottom right-hand base, which is well saturated, the mineral only, and his natural expansion, which is now fully running. Plus, he's got plenty of gateways. At 9 gateway count, he does have some problem with some probes doing some wily things alongside that cybernetics core. Hopefully, he'll figure that out sooner rather than later. His arbiter count's been a little bit low. He does have 2 arbiters moving forward, and he has been pumping out of 2 stargates here. Honestly, a good stasis in the backfield. He could probably run over this mineral only, but all he really has to do is make sure that RTG can't peel out of his base and can't establish a 3rd functional base. The mineral only is starting to look thin now for RTG. He could be in a lot of trouble not in a hurry. And critically, I again want to point out that he's just now working on level 2 weapons at the 21-minute mark, which just feels extremely late. Doodle's 80 supply ahead is now maxed. So now he can start going forward and going for these attacks. He finds that command center trying to sneak out and float ahead. Heard a Dark Templar die somewhere out there. A lot of comsats being expended. I still don't see a science vessel anyplace. There's a science vessel over the natural expansion. Only a single science vessel. EMP's just being researched. And Doodle swinging around, going ahead and clearing out those vultures out of that top left location. I do want to say I find this hilarious, is that this engineering bay has been sitting here this entire time. That photon cannon's finally going to warp in to go ahead and deal with it. Vulture's getting on top of some zealots, some nice favorable exchange. They're now regathering and attacking that. They're just trying to be, honestly, this is kind of like a mosquito attack more than anything. Just trying to be annoying. And Doodle just camping in that upper left-hand corner. A bunch of cannons being warped in. Those vultures sneaking out, realizing they're not going to be able to get anything accomplished there. Some reinforcing zealots trying to engage those vultures as they are pressing towards that mineral only. That mineral only looking a little bit thin. There's only a single cannon, and that cannon is distracted by that engineering base. So RTG finding some light of day here by sneaking into Doodle's natural expansion, which usually would be mined out by this stage of the match, but because of the earlier damage, able to get a little bit of something done there. But RTG still in a lot of trouble. This is a lot of zealots and dragoons. No High Templar, fortunately for him. Level 1 weapons is being upgraded. Doodle, finding some breathing room here, is going to go ahead and get a fleet beacon and 2 additional stargates to probably press in with a large attack with this army that he's got standing, and then do a tech switch over to carrier. And considering how vulture and tank heavy this composition is at this stage, that could be devastating. And level 1 air weapons is going to be in place for that to happen. Level 2 weapons will finally be online, though. Right now, Doodle ahead in the overall upgrade sphere. RTG trying to press in, manages to take out something here, but now we see that dive. Nice spread from Doodle. From a lot of those troops going in. Is there going to be a stasis here? Nice stasis. It looks like hits a handful of siege tanks. So there's only 4 siege tanks in this grouping. A lot of these attack troops not engaging for Doodle, though. Finally, like, re-engaging. They still actually might have enough to clear this out. Regardless, even though RTG managed to push this back, he expended a lot of troops in doing so, and while that's happened, the carriers are on the way. And so in a minute or so, there's going to be a carrier fleet overhead. And I don't think RTG has just enough period to deal with it. If you look at the resident bank, Doodle continues to sit on a decent supply. He's actually got that 12 o'clock base mining as well. And RTG is just dying for minerals. Literally dying for minerals. Lost that engineering bay, trying to build another engineering bay to get turrets up. That was a hero engineering bay. Already back at max supply. Actually, he has a fifth gateway, which indicates essentially what he can do is he can just throw a lot of these units away. He can just attack move with this and then fill in the gap with carriers. Initial carrier is going to be out momentarily. And RTG is now in a situation where he has to defend that mineral only and this upper left-hand corner. This upper left-hand corner has some decent gaps, but this is not a huge siege tank siege tank army to kind of deal with this. 5 siege tanks in the back corner at the very least, trying to fill in with some mines and supply depots to kind of plug that gap. A good recall in that upper left-hand corner could be absolutely devastating. And right now, RTG to win this match somehow needs to find a way to be on the offensive. Carriers are up. Arbiter pressing forward, looking for a location to recall. Honestly, could probably recall in this gap right here. Are we going to see recall? There's the recall. Some Dragoons dying initially with that comsat, but this is enough of attack force to really soften up that back-end defense. And that's also supply that's emptying out to go ahead and build some additional carriers. And I don't think RTG... I'm not sure that RTG realizes what's happening in the background here. He's very Vulture heavy, very tank heavy, and very Goliath light. Expending all sorts of comsats all of a sudden. And even if he discovered this, I don't know that he has enough raw production out of these factories to fill in a sizable Goliath force. He's still sitting at just 6 factories. So essentially you have almost as many Stargates as you have factories. Not exactly the situation you want to be in. Carriers now moving out to that natural expansion. All of RTG's main production line and reinforcement point completely exposed. A Goliath moving up. That's got to be the most hopeless thing. That's got to be the most hopeless feeling as a Goliath. It's like you're that one guy running forward into the carrier fleet. Interceptors flying overhead. Still surviving, though. What a hero. More Goliaths grouping up. As many Goliaths right now as there are carriers. They're clearing out the turrets to the south. What this is also going to do is provide an opportunity for a recall underneath these carriers. Looks like there is a large grouping of Goliaths, but there's just so much ground to try to cover with these guys. And the carrier fleet continues. And right now they're able to attack a little bit of interceptors, but not able to really get a lot else accomplished. Taking down detection here and there, picking off the detection where he can. Unsieging, realizing is probably do or die. I'm looking for, RTG sitting at 164 supply. Has managed to fill in that grouping with a good amount of Goliaths. That science vessel's still alive, but I think he realizes, like, I've got to go and attack, otherwise my base is just going to get picked apart. The carriers doing their damage to the south, some probes being transferred to the 6 o'clock in the midst of this. And Doodle kind of inviting this attack force out. Being very, very patient. Some vultures had managed to sneak out underneath. He's just buying time, it looks like. It's like, I'm just going to let my carriers go to work, keep you in the red, keep picking off Goliaths as they are spawning, and get on top of your factory line. That's going to force the Goliaths back. I'm wondering if there's going to be like a pseudo base race situation here, where there's a recall out towards the main. And then just reinforcements from Doodle to try to cut off kind of what's in between. RTG losing units, which is going to allow him to at least produce again. These Goliaths are just too few number to deal with this. He's sneaking out. Looks like going to try to engage at that 12 o'clock location. Let's see if the rest of that army pushes in and engages there. Looks like they might, they actually might be able to land a really solid set of stasis as well before these tanks are even sieged. Actually, not even going to bother. And there's GG from RTG. A little bit of alliteration there with just the G's, oddly enough. Realizing he just doesn't have enough to cover all the map. He has no opportunity to really press Doodle and just doesn't have a standing army to get it done. Well played by Doodle on Blue Storm. 1-1. We'll move on to Game 3 momentarily.